trying to get my other laptop set up. What's up? All right. Here. Test 1 2. Works. All right, cool. We are going to discuss the multi-repo first. For like the front end, we've got all the backend data, right?
So like I can screen share and we can work through it. Let's see. There you can see my screen.
Gotta think of a better name.
It's not bad. I don't hate it.
It ain't bad, Al. Yeah, you're kind of right. Like I think we could play it off because it does have a lot of homage to the inspiration, and it could stick, but
Let's see. Can I bring you on here?
this is all gonna get integrated also into Character Studio soonish. I've got someone working on badge ideas, but it's gonna be 2D designs first. You know, kind of like how you see on GitHub achievement or your badges there and stuff like that. We can always swap out textures and 3D models, but we can also display it on user profiles and stuff like that.
Word. Okay. I'm gonna do a check on the stream audio, make sure we're not having any issues. Where's my phone?
You got one of those split keyboards.
Yes, I do. Right, let me. There you go. Nice and focus. There it is.
You just don't type your password.
Yeah. Okay.
What are those panels? Touchscreen panels?
Which one? This in front of me?
Yeah, they're touchscreens.
That's an iPad. It's like
Oh,
so I can control like all my audio. So you know my mic controls and can control the stream as well.
your OS is Mac?
Yeah,
I see.
yeah. So yeah, like I have my MacBook over here. That's this thing connected to this monitor. But with Mac, like you can do a pretty cool thing where you can just like drag your mouse to your iPad, even though it's like so it's not like extending the monitor, but then so I can if you look like I can control my iPad with like the mouse and keyboard that I have connected to my Mac.
That's really cool.
Yeah, so like it's like basically like if you moved your mouse to another window. So now look, you can see my mouse is over here. And then just like move my mouse back,
That's
and
it.
now it's on the iPad. Yeah. Where were we? Oh yeah, I was checking the stream audio. Let's see. Is there a way to hide yourself view in Discord? Let's see. I don't think so.
That's it.
All good. Test, test, 1, 2, 3. Hello, hello. Can you guys say some
We're
stuff as well?
Yep, test.
Yes.
Testing, testing.
Okay. Looks Gucci. Let's get into it.
One thing I noticed on the leaderboard is on the leaderboard, we used to have tags next to people. Now we don't have anything. Well, except for when you click monthly or weekly, not all the time.
Mm-hmm.
That's just a small.
Yeah, I think because the scoring system is like mid refactor. I remember we reposed it to work on the multi-repo stuff. So once the multi-repo stuff done, the next thing is basically doing the scoring system, which that kind of leads into the second topic of the rewards. Those two things are related. So
Yeah. Overall, let's just think of the scoring as a way to accelerate evaluators' lives, but not directly convert into rewards, unless it's like badges, reputation rewards, not anything else.
Yeah. I think that's the key because like the thing you want to avoid is making it difficult to update the scoring algorithm, and that happens if um, the scoring algorithm is directly or like the amount of money people are getting is directly related to the results of the scoring algorithm. If that's like a one-to-one relationship, then it becomes like a point of centralization and an attack vector, and like something that needs to be governed. And like governance, I think, is like a worst case scenario. You want to design the system to avoid governance as much as possible, or have governance be emergent. Essentially, that's what we're doing. Where the scores are just the scores. It's there to give people insight into like what people are actually doing and what value is being created. Then there's still that human layer to like interpret those
And that's
scores.
value.
Yeah,
Like we need
exactly.
that.
Yeah, but then the human layer will then interpret those scores, and then they can have the nuanced information about like the human layer of like, oh, I know this guy has a high score, but like it seems like none of his stuff is really that impactful.
We
So I'm
want the
not gonna.
human in the loop, like as well. Like in the future, I want to implement attestation services. Because there's not every PR is made equal.
Exactly. So basically the scoring algo is a one layer, and then human interpretation on that score will then be the way that people can then issue rewards and stuff. And like this is the best governance is like you you don't have something to govern that like multiple people need to decide this like how the central pot of money moves. It's just like whoever has the money and wants to like fund a certain thing can just like do it. There's no barriers to that. They can look at the score. We can even make a system where they can add things to their cart, or like be browsing through the leaderboard and like thumbs upping PRs or whatever it is, like curating whatever they think was valuable, and then like let them distribute a certain amount of whatever they want uh, to that list of people. And then so curating that list of people, that becomes like a visible thing too. Then other people can see it and be like, hey, I like that, how that person curated that. And then like also flow money down that same tree or a selection of what people thought was valuable. And then it becomes a way of signaling, and there's the value in being correct, or like the social cloud of being like, hey, I signaled this stuff was valuable before anyone else did. That like then you can get meta level rewards as well, where you incentivize the community to be funding these things on the edges, and then like the you can then fund the people that funded the things that were valuable as well. And so that gets into like the futarchy sort of discussion, but I think the kind of social clout and badges and getting all that like as a part of it is all we need, because that like is a recognition for whatever someone did. So even if like the DAO itself isn't directly sending funding to different areas of the work, which I don't think it should do. I think funding should come from within the community and like larger ecosystem, like people who want to see certain features or whatever, funding those features directly, and then the uh, we
Well,
just
they
have
want to
to.
be sure that they're funding stuff that has impact.
Yeah, exactly. But if if I want to fund something that I think is valuable for myself and I'm giving the money, then that's like my choice what I want to fund, right? And so we can actually determine what has impact based on what we see people funding at the edges, with smaller amounts. So um, the basic I'm saying, like, the funding system should be made like very open and free for anyone to use and participate, and like the DAO could be one of them participating. But for what our
Yep.
purposes here, the main thing we want to do is like have those like reward system badges for contributions and things like that, and then like make it easy for people to contribute financially directly to the funding of ElizaOS, by having that. It's not just like they're just throwing it in a pot called ElizaOS and they don't know where it's going, or like they're not giving their input into what they think the funding should go to. They're putting their money where their mouth is, and also giving their curated signal. And then so if people are willing to do that and spend their own money to say like this is valuable, then that's something we can consider into like our algorithms or whatever as like a very high signal, genuine thing. Because like getting people to actually spend their own money on stuff like filters a lot of the noise and a lot of like the gamification out. Um, yeah.
Are you recording? Because we could use some of this for those articles that Kevin's working on.
Yeah, I was streaming it, so it's being recorded on YouTube. But I started the recording here as well now.
Okay. Yeah, we could just kind of outline some ideas for a series leading up to Dev Connect, and just kind of release stuff along with documentation and kind of explain the vision as it's being built.
Yeah, makes sense.
Dude, I try to make this dashboard view somehow better, but I think you already nailed it. Like, we don't need too much info about like what all the issues or PRs are. I thought it might be useful as like a poster that we could screenshot every day. Um, but
Yeah, like you
it
can just
was
generate the posters
redundant.
differently.
No, but like the text had all that info. So I'm
Yeah,
like, wait a second. I'm just like,
yeah. It's like it needs like mindset shifts, with like when we have the LLM summarization of like the things that were maybe useful or necessary before are not so much now.
yeah. I thought, having and maximizing screen space with information would have been cool, but it was just redundant.
Yeah.
Maybe it'll be cool for multi-repo, though,
For
depending. Or
yeah.
maybe this is just one column and a dashboard is multiple columns.
Yeah. I think so. I think, yeah, in terms of making it work for, because I think like what you're basically trying to go for is have a view that makes better use of larger monitors when people are viewing it on desktop or something. And I think we can do that, slightly adapting the current design to just be a bit more responsive and uh, like expand out some of the stuff to the side, and have like a two-column layout on desktop instead of what we have now. So we can make that work as well. But at first, before that, I would want to nail the like figure out how the multi-repo stuff fits in like the current version. And usually like with UI design, it's always better to kind of design for the smallest screen size first and then like scale it up from there, because it's easier to make the smaller components spread out and fit over a larger screen than it is to make components designed for a large screen like squish in and look good on a small screen. So yeah.
But let's think. We've got the date at the top, and overall, I'm kind of thinking breadth before depth. We do like a org summary, and
Mm-hmm.
then we could, zoom in onto repos, and maybe there's a way to visualize which repos got the most updates within that time frame. So
Yeah.
you could kind of select.
Yeah. So what I was thinking is how we have this what do you call it? Wait, let me switch my camera over. How we have this like this is the main page right now basically, is these like daily summaries that show up. Updating the prompt for this to essentially show um, a similar summary but broken down per repo. So um, but I think like we should still uh, have like specifically more details on the main core repo, and then have like a separate section of like, hey, here's all the plugin repo updates, and then whichever repos were updated that week, there'll be an entry for those. But if they weren't, then it'll just be like nothing there for that. Um, and I think like I would, if we're gonna have multi-repo, I would start to like condense this a little bit. So if you can see, like we summarize issues here um, in the main monthly summary page. But if we're gonna take a
We could
more, sorry, what was that?
like maybe a repo summary instead of issues and developments. We just kind of have sections based on repo.
Yeah, um, sections based on repo, but also um, instead of like doing the issue summaries within the prompt for like a daily summary, for example, we have a separate pipeline to generate summaries for each issue on its own, and then uh, we then like include those like pre-summarized issues in the prompt for the daily summaries. That way we don't need, because if we have like this much detail for each of the repos, this won't be high level anymore. It'll be like a very detailed, unglanceable summary. So instead, we would just give it like the list of issue summaries, and then get it to write a high level overview of the issues in each repo. So maybe like for each repo, you'd have like 2 or 3 line items talking about the issues, and then 2 or 3 line items talking about the PRs in that repo, and then like an overall summary across all repos, like what was being worked on. And then like when people go into here, or like we could make inline like little cards as well for each repo. But when people go into the issues view, similar to how if they click into contributors, they see a summary of each contributor. Like they click into an issue and see a summary of the issue and like what the issue was talking about or the conversation in there. And then similarly with PRs, if they open this, like have uh, a paragraph or small paragraph summary under each of these items uh, with info about what the PR was about. And that way,
That's a lot, though.
yeah, but I mean, we're already, it's either going to be in there or like spread across all over here. So we could do it so it's just the top 10 PRs we summarize or something like that. Or
I
maybe
like being complete, so I want to definitely still have the main, um, the title info and the status and all of that, the metadata,
hmm
complete for all of whatever happened that day. But if we want to do like an org level, um, single page view of like the pulse of what happened in an organization, we could do a summarization of, we're already kind of doing that per repo at the moment.
yeah,
So why don't we just kind of add another kind of layer where we just kind of why don't we do expansions like details, in Markdown? How you can just kind of expand things out.
Okay.
Why don't we do an accordion system?
Yeah, we can do that.
And then we have a summary, and you can always expand for more detail.
Yeah. Okay. I'm gonna just write this in an issue so we can have our plan ready. Multirepo support. I guess.
It'd be easy to modify the Markdown as well, and embed it.
Make an issue.
I'm also in ChatGPT Canvas mode, just kind of vibing some ideas for this page, and it suggested collapsible cards and
could have collapsible sections for details.
yeah, and that could be.
And it doesn't necessarily need to be just markdown collapsible sections. We can be a bit, richer with the UI, have these kind of pop-up windows, reuse these components that we have to show the little card for each repo that was updated. And so another consideration as well is that, for example, with the daily summaries, we can include a lot more detail there because there's going to be less activity in a certain day than, for example, a monthly summary. So I think the prompt and setup for the daily summary would look pretty different than the monthly summary, but you'd probably want the UI to look pretty much the same for consistency.
Yeah.
Versus in the monthly summary, in the daily summary, it would be worth having a detailed prompt and just a single overview of all the activity across all the repos. But for the monthly summary, it would probably look more we generate monthly summaries of each individual repo, and then have a smaller
I'm gonna just share
overview.
some. Looking at chat.
Are you sharing a screen or?
Oh no, I'm just I could, but it's a mock-up. Here, I'll share my screen. See if we can come up with maybe an activity bar or some kind of visual to kind of see, oh, I want to get a look at that. It could be kind of a single bar with colors per repo. Maybe give an idea of which one. Yeah, let's do like. All right. Okay, that's kind of noisy.
So the other thing too is like we can have a page to like show all the repos and have like a repo details page, and then that detail page will have similar like um, layout
So
and
like keep this one just kind of org summary, and
yeah,
then another one where it's kind of more an explore type page.
yeah, yeah, because like this we want basically it almost to just be a daily digest,
I,
and
I
then
I think we can make something more subtle. This was the first try. I'm thinking just a very simple, like look at this. Something like that,
mm,
where it's segmented based on each repo share of updates, and then yeah, we could kind of like on hover or click to instead of this drop down basically.
uh-huh. Yeah, I wouldn't do that drop down to filter repos. I would basically
Yeah.
be like click into the repo page, and then on that repo page you'll have like a you can drill down into whatever's going on in that repo. Because we want for a repo page we'll probably want to show different things than what we would show on like a daily summary page. Um, yeah.
But we're still gonna do a daily summary per repo.
Not necessarily. Like the repo summaries will probably be like weekly. Just like for contributors, we don't do daily summaries for contributors. Actually, we do. Let me see.
Not
Like
every
daily.
repo I think deserves a daily summary. Like if an activity is low, it's just kind of
Yeah, it's not necessary.
yeah.
But the repo page would be more so to show like the overall history of the
I
repo.
also don't want it to be too long because if you check, for example, let me just show you on the stream. This channel, AI News,
Mhm.
we are sending a webhook from similar type of data, and we also generate this. It's markdown converted to HTML, and then I take a screenshot, and we have last 7 days of updates in
Mhm.
this way. But you can only have 2,000 characters max for the webhook description,
Okay.
and we just barely kind of like we kind of have to cut off some things.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. I mean, I think that makes sense because like, well, you would probably just want to do the super high level thing there, and then expect people to like click a link and then view the details from that link if they're interested to read more, rather than having them like just have to parse everything just through the webhook message. Because you can include links, right, with the webhook
Yep.
payload. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know how many. I want to try and keep things succinct, and that's why I'm trying to go for more visual stuff, and eventually Remotion will
Yeah.
help to compress it more.
So for example, um, the sort of activity breakdown you're showing, if you look at this thing that we
I
have
like
on the
that one.
contributor page, we can have a similar thing where, on the monthly overview, for example, you can see how much activity there was on each repo. Since they're like, this would be like maybe the main repos, but
I think that
or each
is
repo
better.
page would have like this sort of view of like here's activity on this repo in the last whatever.
But isn't it nice to kind of get that as well on the overview? Like something like that at least.
Yeah, I'd say like I don't know if it matters to know like which like in the chart itself to know which repos had the most activity because it'll if there's like in a
We're
monthly
gonna want to
view.
replace this eventually, right? Like what are we gonna see? Like color coded or maybe something to kind of see which one belongs to which repo?
Well, I would say that each in this page there'll be like a card or a section for each repo, and then that would have like the stats for that repo, and then you could click in and see the issues for that repo specifically. Uh,
Why don't we do it?
we could
Because
show it
that's a
all
lot
in
of more
one list, but
buttons. Yeah.
it just depends like what you think is a better UX if it's useful to see all of them in one list. Like we could do all of them in one list for the daily page because there's not that many of them, but in the monthly page we can have separate sections for each repo because like if you're looking at 300 issues across 20 repos, like it doesn't really
Yeah.
help anything. So
Well, this is 300 pull requests, and at some point you would just kind of opt for just talking to it, you know.
yeah.
So like that, I want to kind of lean people towards agentic route.
Mhm. Um okay, so yeah, makes sense. And then
And this also has the contributor summaries, which are nice. That's the ultimate way to cut through all that data.
what? The contributor
No,
summary?
just copying everything, and then you get everything,
Yeah.
including summaries. But I like this, and I think if we just had the activity bar, maybe we swap it with this for all the repos, like an activity bar, kind of like on the profile page, but
Uh-huh.
the breakdown, and then we keep it all on the same like uh elements here, but
Yeah. I mean,
differentiate it.
it's still maybe kind of cool to see um like the overall lines change across all repos and files change and total commits across all repos. Like I think like that code changes section um it's fine as is cuz like this page is for like showing the stats of all the repos together. So we just sum them all together, and it's still kind of nice to see, Um, and it's like bigger numbers, uh, which isn't good for morale. And then of course you'd have like the similar view on each repo page as well, if you want to see specific repo data. And
Yeah.
then yeah. Um, Yeah, so I'm thinking like the structure of the daily summary could would probably change the least from what we have now. Because like even if you give all the repo data for a certain day, it won't be too much data, and we can still kind of show it in this way. We just have to tell it to like talk about specific repos, but then the weekly and especially the monthly will need a bit of different layout, I think, or at least different structure to have uh, the you know repo specific
I
data.
want to see something visual. Like one experiment I tried and abandoned. It was just kind of a quick test, but it still produced an interesting visual. Was seeing a activity bar, and let me see if I could just grab something here, and then I'll try and find it.
So I think a good place to start would be like the formulation of the prompt for the daily, weekly, and monthly summaries. If you want to like work on updating that, I'll start doing like some of the UI stuff. And we can then like run some new summaries with the new layout and see how it looks.
We already have data?
Yeah, we have the data. That's all done. So yeah, like you can see the code, or I'll link it to you, I guess.
Is it merged on main?
Yeah. Let me see if the pipelines ran. Let me create this issue first. It should be there. Let's see. Actions. Yeah, 20 hours ago they ran. And the data should be in there. Yeah, but so if you look at this prompt here, we take the date, then we have this like focus areas thing that we calculated, so we'll have to kind of rework that a bit, because like that doesn't account for like repo specific things. Completed items, we have that.
That's AI project summary.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah, so this is basically what we need to rework to make it work with multi-repo. So let's just try actually what we get if we ask Gemini to rework it. This file contains the logic for generating daily, weekly, and monthly summaries. However, it is outdated and designed for only summarizing one repo. Help me modify the prompt and code to generate overall summaries of activity across multiple repos. Requirements. The resulting summary should be in so like we won't do it this round, but eventually we can actually make it so that the summary generation code like actually generates the UI components as well in a more rich way, using
That'll be
like
cool
MDX.
someday.
So yeah, because that is the future, is like AI writing its own interfaces.
Yep. I even saw, I think I was watching a Grafana presentation or something about, they're all experimenting with AI, and yeah, every AI is going to be the primordial soup of which we can just dream up whatever, or data, I mean. As long as we have good data.
Yeah.
It's making me want to get more into learning databases and getting good at that.
Yeah, it's worth it.
Yeah, it's a rabbit hole though. I just want to know enough, not
Well, I mean,
get too deep.
yeah, I can help you learn exactly however much you want to learn.
I think just Postgres and SQLite.
The main fundamental you need to know is like SQL, how SQL works. And then once you know SQL works, that's kind of like the core like way of thinking, like understanding relational data. And it doesn't, like, you don't need to like look up how Postgres works specifically. Like, you first understand SQL itself, and then like whatever you use, it'll make sense, whether it's SQLite or Postgres. Okay.
I also want to figure out some data stuff for these wearables. Eventually, I've got people who getting ready to connect it to Character Studio, but that's in the future. Where's I wonder, Remotion just has so many good GitHub templates already because of their end of the year thing, and all those are open source.
Sorry, say again. What's open source?
Remotion always has these end of the year GitHub marketing things, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like your recap, and then I'm just kind of wondering, like, maybe there's some ideas buried in there that we could use to summarize. Because they're basically summarizing GitHub activity in video form.
Yeah, it would be worth like getting a LLM to like analyze their code base and explain how they do it for that inspiration.
Yeah. Yep. All right. Well, can't find it. I'm just gonna set this up. Generate summaries, docs. They're good documentation. Let's see. Bunch of SQL errors. Do I have to do any kind of like a database migrate?
Did you modify the database schema?
No. I just pulled the latest and I'm setting up a local dev environment.
Yeah, I mean, if you just run the data sync thing, it'll
I
pull
did.
in. Yeah, if you run that, you're good.
Nothing else, I'm good. Now I can just try and run it.
Should be able to.
Yeah, it works.
Nice.
Okay, and that was AI summary. What was that file called? The one that you had AI project summary, that was it.
Yeah.
Have you played Death Stranding?
Yeah, I have. I'm still like maybe a quarter of the way through the first one. I haven't like
Ah,
finished it. But
I
yeah,
just got the first one director's cut.
nice. Yeah, I have to. It's a bit of a grind, like the first half of the game.
Yeah.
But it gets better after that. But yeah, I wanna definitely finish it so I can play 2. It looks super dope. Like it seems like 1 was just like a setup for 2.
Yeah. You're working on this prompt here for AI project summary.
Yeah.
Let me know.
Feel free to also work on that, and we can just like see, you know, what you come up with and what I come up with, and see how like what's best. It's like giving it to 2 different LLMs and seeing which has the best result.
Well, can you just share what you got typed up so far so I don't just like
Yeah, yeah.
completely copy it?
So I mean, I don't want to like pre-influence how you're thinking about it too much, but generally it's just like this file contains logic for generating daily, weekly, and monthly summaries. However, it's outdated and designed only for summarizing one repo, helping modify the prompt and code to generate overall summaries of the activity across multiple repos. Requirements are the resulting summary should be in Markdown format and include repo names and referencing issues and PRs. Actually, unless it's in a section specific to a repo already. The completed work
Okay,
section
got it.
should be, yeah, you can read it. Yes.
So this is about daily summaries.
Yeah. But yeah, we'll basically have a different prompt, I think, for monthly, probably weekly summaries as well.
I just like, we are summarizing per repo and per contributor. And I like how, didn't we have this idea where maybe we summarize from a user-centric point of view versus per repo point of view? Like, what did the culmination of contributors working on? Maybe that'll be my approach,
Okay.
you know?
Yeah.
Like, are we, let me first check database. See if we're getting daily contributor summaries per repo.
No, we're not.
Well then,
Well, I
that's a
don't
starting
believe we
point.
are. Let me see.
User summaries. I don't even know if we have the
Well, so yeah,
structure here.
this, the data, we're ingesting the data for the all the repos, but the summaries is still, um, like I guess technically it does. So if you go to AI contributor summary instead, um, it'll
Yeah,
show.
user summaries is it could use a some context about which repo it's
Yeah.
referring to.
So like technically it does work for multi-repo, but all the data is like not repo specific in the prompt. So um, yeah, you could generate the daily AI contributor summaries. like work on updating that prompt, and then that will kind of set up the
I kind of want to update the
foundation.
table with one more column.
Which table?
Well, actually, no. I think it is useful to have daily contributor summaries. Okay, yeah. Maybe it is a prompt thing. I'm just trying to think like how to word it. I don't see AI summaries as a table. What are you referring to?
I wasn't talking about the tables. I was talking about the file, like AI contributor summary and AI project summary, where we generate the
Oh,
prompts for the summaries.
got it.
In the table, I think it's just stored as. Let me see actually.
It was just user summaries.
Yeah, user summaries.
Start with metrics, username, blah blah blah. Okay, yeah. PR repository. It seems like you've just got a few kind of like test repos at the moment, like ElizaOS plugins and plugin Solana, and
Yeah, you can add more there and then run ingest to pull in more data if you want.
yeah.
But yeah, it's just to like just see it working first, and then once it's working, we can add more repos. Because otherwise, we're just like wasting tokens, you know.
Yeah. All right, I'll expand it config-wise first, and then we'll see.
Okay.
Okay, so it is going from 3 repos to 180. That's quite a leap.
For what?
If we're to add, monitoring all the other repos happening, so maybe I got an idea. Why not?
We also might want to consider having, like we might ingest the data for a lot of repos, but having like a curated selection that count towards rewards or being summarized in this way or whatnot. 'Cause I'm guessing like if just some random person creates a new repo, probably want some sort of validation step to see if it should like be worthy of being included in the info.
What do you think about adding all the repos to the config, but then using activity detection from the events API to figure out which ones to process?
Possibly. You can also just filter which ones to process based on what activity is in the database already. I don't think we need to use the activity API for that.
Well, I know for sure we want to do, I think every org would like to own their data. So like having a complete ingest makes sense from an ownership perspective. And then filtering, it's kind of like a snapshot, and then we could yeah, figure it out from there. But let's see.
Like the diffs in the markdown dump or the JSON dump files in the data branch is basically the equivalent of the activity API, but like, you know, just that like contains whatever new activity happened that day. I don't know if there's anything specific in the activity API that we can't get just from the data we already have.
You said it, you know, based on database activity, but that would depend on having hard-coded values if we already have that in the config, pipeline config, right? So we're checking per repo events that happen per repo, like issues, PRs versus events, which would possibly be like, for example, if I go to ElizaOS plugins events API here, you can see there's events for plugin Twitter. Plug in Hyperliquid. Plug in Polkadot.
Yeah, so like the current way it works, it just like maps over all the repos, but we can update it so that um it only
This got
like
added yesterday. So yeah, I think this helps us kind of get whatever happened that day. I'll put it in the chat.
so like the issue with this though is like we would then have to either store all that data in our database, or if we don't store it in the database and we just like query it at like summarization time, we don't have like ownership over the data um, from that API per se. Uh,
Yeah, I think my order of operations strategy is full snapshot and then events API for
okay,
filters.
but the full snapshot we can already filter based on whatever repos had events on a certain day.
Oh, so we're already doing that?
We're not doing that already, but like we have everything that we need to be able to do that because like the database stores, the date an issue was created or the PR was created, so we can just have a query for the database of
Right.
like.
I guess I'm like trying to reduce unnecessary API calls, like versus checking every single repo in the config. I check it, events. So it's kind of more guided that way versus, um, yeah, if we already have it in the database. Like, what if there's no updates today? Is
Then it
it still
wouldn't
going to
show up in the
use an
query.
API call?
No, like this reduces API calls because like it wouldn't need any API call because all the data is already in the database for once we run the ingest that pulls in all the data for PRs and issues created. Um,
So the one thing, like right there, issues and PRs created per org or per repo.
per repo.
So we would still check all the repos versus the org. Um,
Well, I mean
it's
the
like a 50x expansion of how many repos we'd add if we were to, add in all the ElizaOS plugins. That's
mhm.
175 repos.
Yeah, well, like the it would maybe reduce the initial set of API calls because like we don't need to query what was created on each repo, but eventually it would like we would end up querying all the repos that have the activity anyways and pulling in that data anyways. Um, because like the way the GitHub API rate limiting works is like depending on how many things you query for. Um, so or like how much data you query for. So even if you make a query to a repo and it doesn't have any data, like that's not going to cost much in like the rate limit tokens. So
Yeah.
like it's like it would be maybe a slight optimization in one part of it, but I don't necessarily think it's worth having to like introduce this like other API and like other data source into the code base. Like it complicates the ingest code um, a bunch, and it would, whether we're querying for like the repo specific data, and we can use the existing queries too to like, query the org if you want. Uh, it might be a small tweak to make there. We can have like a filter step on above the pipeline, but I guess like to avoid, if you maybe want to have to avoid having to add all those things to the config file, make the config file huge. Um, like that could be a reason. We could add like an option to include a whole org in the config file, but I don't necessarily think that's a good thing. I think like people should be intentional about what's being included there.
But it's useful. Like if we see an issue or a PR that just um, like one of these plugins got updated, that could be a signal to then later update the docs for that, or update agent knowledge, or like it's good to kind of have that sentry tower.
Hmm. Wait, so what's a sentry tower in this case?
Observation of what repos in an organization got updated.
Yeah. Um. Yeah. I mean, like it's the outcome is the same either way. It just matters whether we like do it with the data we already have or we introduce another API. And the only functional difference between the two approaches is like um, having to do like more API calls up front or like slightly less API calls up front. Um, yeah.
Yeah, check the chat. I'm just going to write a plan file and then make a GitHub issue, and we can figure out that later. But for now, I'll just static code some stuff.
Sure. See what the chat is. Um,
Pretty good.
wait, what do you? Is it that JSON you're showing me, or what are you trying to show in the chat?
Yeah, there's a curl command right above too,
Okay,
which is from this. Yeah, I just filtered it
got
to
it.
kind of show you like, oh, like if you wanted to sort of target ingestion,
Hmm.
you could just kind of filter which ones had events that day.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'll just make an issue and we can
Sure.
get to that later. How goes the prompting?
Here you can see on my screen. I'm just like.
Not anymore.
Wait, what? Oh, so I have to reshare
You're,
it. My bad. One sec.
yeah.
Can you see that?
It's a little blurry at the moment.
Sharpen
Now
up
I
soon.
can see. Yeah, so generate daily, weekly, daily, monthly, 2-step. Yep, project summaries, generating individual and overall, repo level and then overall. And then daily intervals. Yep, aggregated. Rename and refactor. Generate repo. Focus on single and then what about the org? Implement overall. Oh, here we go. Overall summary. Generate a new query for pretty detailed here.
Yeah, I mean, the more detail you have here, the more you can just like let the AI just implement the whole thing in one go.
Yep. Seems good. Overall summaries as a new table. Sure.
I'm also thinking like the generate like the overall weekly summaries. It could also get actually maybe not worth it. We can try both ways, but like inputting the daily summaries of every day that week into the weekly summary versus just like the repo specific summaries for each week, because the daily summaries will technically have more details, so could have like some info showing up there that might not
That's
be in
what I
other
like
places.
doing. I like sort of just reusing stuff and then that's how I did the pipeline before. Is I would just gather all of the daily ones and generate the weekly or monthly summaries from that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so this plan that I've got here is instead of processing all repos every run, dynamically detect which ones have recent activity and focus processing on them. Yeah, some of this is going to depend on the stuff that you're doing, because I want to just kind of reuse some of those elements there. Minimal viable. I'll just create a file for now, and I can make an issue later.
Sure.
Dude, the MetaFactory website, it's like a little bit busted right now.
Oh yeah, I just remembered I forgot I have to update the backend API for that. It's broken right now.
I'm going to just focus on 6 repos for now. We can have just comments in the middle of this JSON like this, because it's TypeScript. It's fine.
Sorry, say again?
You can just have comments in here.
In the TypeScript
like in the
file?
config. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's fine. It's chill.
Yeah.
Okay.
No JSON limitation. That's one reason I wanted to have it in TypeScript.
Yeah, that's cool. Dude, Jintern's been like handling so much technical community support. If you ever check the tech support channel, just like see what he's up to. Actually, shit.
What happened?
We're good. Someone else stepped in.
Okay.
A little bit of supervision, but I would just say, like, with the latest version of Eliza, he's 30% better. And before he was like 50%, 60%. So he's like, not, I would say 85 to 90% like accurate
Nice.
in his responses.
That's sick. I really wish there was like a good way to like monetize this somewhat, where like whoever like developed a certain agent can have like certain percentage of like the token use of people interacting with that agent or something.
There are ways. I watched this great talk yesterday by HubSpot CEO, and he's talking about this professional agent network. I think it would be a platform subscription type thing, but agents can also pay each other. Either way, like, I keep hearing about how well they're doing on platforms like TikTok and some other stuff. So I just want to make them useful for DAOs, because I think there's so much value that, and like the stuff that we're doing, especially with like the council and stuff that M3 is working on with these shows, is I don't see anyone else doing stuff like that. And I think that's where multi-agent setups can really shine as well for consensus forming and making governance more efficient, is like just creating these talk shows and news shows, and yeah, just a lot is figuring out who's doing what, and format right now is like scrolling through all these different links and stuff that agents would be great at. They go through all that, aggregate, summarize, and then the presentation layer. That's where it can really stand out from the crowd.
All right, I'm gonna lock in for a sec here as Gemini makes these changes because it's getting ahead of itself. So I have to figure out what it's trying to do here.
Yeah, it's still creating a summary even though there's no activity for a repo that day.
Yeah, that's what I'm working on right now to filter those.
There is another way. Well, I don't know. Are you just trying to make it so that it doesn't, so it skips if there's no updates that day for summarization?
Yep. Or like it'll just filter the repos for whichever ones have activity on the day.
That makes sense.
Hey guys.
Yo.
Hey Jim.
Hey.
4 a.m. here, and I was up for the Coinbase demo day and had to be cut midstream because the guys couldn't get their mic to work.
That sucks.
It does. What are you guys working on? Just so you guys online hopped on.
I'm working on updating the summaries for Multirepo.
Okay, nice. All right, guys, just hopped on for a quick hello. I'm gonna go back to bed. I'll catch you up in the chat. All right, see you.
Peace.
How much is your cursor bill?
$20 a month.
Oh, you're not doing any of the...
I don't use max mode. I think max mode's kind of a scam. Like, the cost is like exponentially higher because you're just getting like the raw token costs. So it's like not subsidized at all. And when I want to use like large context for planning stuff, I prefer to use like repo prompt or like Gemini CLI. So
But
yeah,
that requires Gemini, an account there. Have you tried OpenRouter with Gemini, or?
well, Gemini CLI's free tier is like huge. Their free tier is like
No.
as much as Claude's $200 a month tier. So I don't end up, that doesn't cost me anything actually. It's probably like the most value for best bang for your buck coding tool right now, Gemini CLI.
Talking about the new one that just came out, right?
Yeah, it's open source too. It's like the only one that's open source out of like Codex and Claude Code and I think this is the
Open
only
code.
one. Open Code, I guess, is also open source.
All right, I'll get it. It's just Gemini AI Studio. Gemini is free?
Yep.
Is it like a certain amount free?
Like a huge amount, I think, like 1,000 daily, like,
Holy sh!
usages. Like, you can literally get tens of thousands of dollars worth of tokens a month from the free tier on this Gemini plan, or the Gemini code plan, or no plan, but just Gemini code or Gemini CLI.
60 model requests per minute and 1,000 requests per day, no charge. Wow, that's insane. The multi-repo stuff, summarization, I don't want to create duplicate work, so I just kind of created a plan for badges in the meantime.
Good.
And that's all just based on data that we're already gathering. I'll create an issue for it. And maybe I could start outlining some content ideas we could collaborate with for this book that he wants to write about AI and DAOs.
Mm-hmm.
This would be a whole, I guess, other future session, but like I've already set up like a HackMD and a GitHub to just brain dump into, and I can jet through it real quick. It's not pretty or anything, but it's like I'm just kind of trying to get things organized a bit. But if you see my screen, here's like a HackMD book that I put together,
Okay.
and I've got some ideas like links. So we've got like some stuff that we're using for creating the council in terms of data. And I was
Okay.
thinking that we can apply the stuff that we're doing in ElizaOS ecosystem, but to Ethereum's ecosystem so that it connects to a bigger audience, you know?
Yeah.
And I have some sources like this, super chain, and then the Eth Magicians forum. One thing I need to figure this out anyways, but like a lot of DAOs use discourse, and I have a discourse scraper. I think it could be a little bit better, but did you know if you had JSON at the end of any discourse URL, you get nice, pretty data?
Interesting.
But the thing that I'm like kinda stuck on is like, how do I get all this for every single post? And I can probably figure it out, but then it's like super easy to scrape discourse. But yeah, I was thinking like generating the council show, but it's like Ethereum superchain ecosystem, including Vitalik AI in there.
Yeah.
Maybe we could do something Clank Tank or this leaderboard as well with Optimism's GitHub. But I got a bunch of images here to kind of like whiteboard a bit, some ideas and how it kind of all ties together, so you can kind of see some of the stuff that's been swirling around here. And well, TL draw it or Figma it into some good articles that could be shared on X, and later we can compile them into a book before Dev Connect.
Word. Yeah, makes sense. Very cool.
That's November, so we've got a bit of time.
Nice.
Yeah, here this deliberation room is kind of gonna be inspiration for discussing proposals and whatnot, but I'll just send you the link as a reminder for getting into that later.
All right.
Just made an issue for badge system. And I've got a repo for all the badges going on here. It also contains context about this open source MMO. Which right now it's we've got Solana integration working. Some cool ideas already. Like with the data we have, we could do awards for activity streaks. We could do some stuff based on what level you have in various areas, or if you've contributed to more than one repo, stuff like that.
Yeah.
If you reviewed like 5 PRs, that could be cool.
Yeah, like, and you can have kind of progressive badges. Like first PR review, you get like a basic badge, and then like, 5
Yep.
reviews, 10 reviews, 50 reviews, you get like the same badge, but
My
like,
artist came up with like some borders for kind of progressive leveling of stuff
yeah,
like bronze, silver,
you could
gold.
have borders. You could even have like extra kind of decorations. Like if you like the
Yeah.
prestige badges in Call of Duty.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That was one of my inspirations. They always get fancier.
Yeah. But yeah, like my workflow's kind of like I'm using Cursor to make like more like specific changes and like iterate on plans, and to kind of like build context and make these like task files and stuff. And then once I have like a properly detailed task file, I'll just like give the whole thing to Gemini CLI to start implementing it like phase by phase, and it does a good
See, I
job.
would go by Gemini CLI. I would do the opposite. Gemini CLI with that context window seems great for ingesting a bunch to create the plans.
Yeah.
And people have set up Gemini versus Codex versus Claude, etc. With the same task. And the one that always emerges in terms of kind of like completing it with the most accuracy and the least time is Claude Code. So I'm gonna try it out and just kind of see like if I could. That would also keep it all in CLI, but man, I was using a lot of Cursor each month.
Do you
Once you
use
have a
Cursor
solid
with your
plan,
own API keys? Is that why?
I use a lot of tool calls,
In
max
mode?
mode sometimes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't use max mode at all.
Wait, Jen. So if you had a max plan from Cloud Code or like from Anthropic, couldn't you just get it all for free? Like it's instead of paying additional costs.
But then you can't
I
use
should probably
Cursor.
do that.
Like, for me, like the UX of Cursor is still nice for a lot of things, especially like the diffing and reviewing the changes the AI is making. But yeah, like Claude Code, you're locked into like it does have the new version does have a bit better integration into the IDE, or into like Cursor or whatever editor you're using, but it's still a bit clunkier. And the biggest downside to Claude Code for me is like not being able to use Gemini with it. I still find Gemini to be like far superior to Claude, at least for the way
I feel like Jen's
tasks
not
are
really
used.
an IDE user, right? Like what IDE do you use, Jen? Isn't it like NeoVim or something like that?
What was the question?
He made the argument for why you should be using Cursor, and I'm like, yeah, but I don't think he uses VS Code forks like that.
I haven't set up any of the CLI tools with MCP yet, but Generally, I feel like if you are, I don't know, I'm kind of just using everything.
Yeah.
Some of them are like the one workflow I haven't quite cracked yet is having, like, you have a task and then you want to set up multiple agents where one checks the work of another agent. Kind of doing that manually while supervising, like, I find it easier to go through diffs with cursor.
Yeah.
So I use that for checking work. Lots of changes.
Yeah, but it seems like if you're getting a lot of the cloud code, it seems like it makes sense to upgrade to a max because for $200 a month, I think you get unlimited. It becomes a cost issue as opposed to, I don't know.
Yeah, I'm probably gonna look into that.
I think it's even fairly generous at the $20 tier, but you get rate limited more, from what I understand. Another thing people have been experimenting with if you're using Cloud Code is to like tell Cloud Code to use Gemini when it needs a big context, like to like basically using Gemini's context window as an advantage.
I didn't know you could do that.
I saw a couple of tweets of people putting stuff like that together.
I gotta head out in a bit, but I'm gonna continue working on this. I want to get this right because like the summarization part is very like it's pretty much like the core of everything we're doing. So um, getting this proper with multi-repo will kind of define how everything else like fits in together. So I think I have a pretty good plan in place. So once I get back, I'm gonna just try out a few different implementations and then test out what works best in terms of synthesizing the data.
Okay. Anything you think I could work on to help in the meantime? I don't want to overstep that part, but I could look into some other stuff. Maybe I'll set up something for doing things in parallel with Optimism's ecosystem, just to kind of see like how deployment is in other orgs, or it's just some of the things kind of rely on first implementing those fixes.
Yeah. Okay.
Like the front end.
Yeah. Yeah, the
So
front end, I mean, I was about to make the front end changes. I realized like the summaries need to be updated. Like that was not a part of the plan originally, so we forgot about it. But it's pretty big part. So yeah, it shouldn't be too much work.
cool. I'll work on maybe some article writing then.
Yeah.
Hit me up when you're around later, and
Sure.
see if we can
Yeah, if you also
coordinate changes.
if you in the meantime if you have any ideas for some of the like wording in the prompt, like I'm working on like what data to bring into each prompt, but some of the actual text like we might keep the same, but just go through it and see if there's anything you change about it to like give it change about it in the multi-repo context.
Yeah, it takes work. I remember trying. I did make the summaries for this one really good. I remember it was a lot of iteration to finally get to somewhere where I'm like, it's consistent, the output is great. It's like, yeah, it took a lot of tries. Just if I were you, I would just try and focus in on the structure, less so the prompts, but like more so like updating, I guess, structure with the expansions, the detail expansions, because it says information dense and concise as I was able to get after a lot of iterations, but who knows?
Yeah.
Also, what model were we using?
We were using Claude, but I just recently switched it to Gemini Flash and Gemini 2.5 Pro for the bigger summaries, and like I personally like those summaries better.
How recent?
Like a few days ago. So you can compare like the summaries from previous, like from a week ago or earlier than a week ago to some of the newer ones. And you should see. And those older ones are probably Claude still because we haven't force regenerated them, so it's still keeping those old ones.
So yeah, I guess it's kind of like key development and technical developments. No, that's all the same. Looks good to me. I mean, as long as it's nice and overall structured. Are you already at the part where you're iterating on the prompt and testing changes?
Not yet. I'm still like I started doing that, but then it did some stuff wrong, so I went back to working on the plan a bit more to refine some of these things. to clarify.
Well, if you want to push changes to a branch where you get to the point of just kind of iterating on the prompt, yeah, tag me and I'll join in on that because it's
Sure.
probably going to take yeah, a bit of work to get it to a good shape. And
Yeah.
we already have Markdown support for something like details, or no?
What do you mean?
Like if you wanted to do like a click to expand
Well,
details.
yeah, the way I'm planning on doing that is like not make it a part of the markdown generated for the overall summary, but the overall summary generation will just generate like the higher level like text markdown formatted summary, and then like the detail ones will be like it'll just show the weekly summary for that repo in the detail view for that. Um, you know,
You know what I was working on? This is related, but not exactly, and I could do this in parallel. AI news has always been in need of more graphics, and so I was kind of gonna work on just improving media gathering across all of our sources, including GitHub.
yeah, could be cool.
Not as relevant for GitHub. Most of this is all text, and for ingestion and summarization and everything, text is king. But yeah, I don't want it to get too long per daily summary. Like we have a very good balance at the moment. But context windows are always expanding, and the repo isn't as high volume as it was like 6 months ago, so we can afford. It is so annoying how it keeps saying significant progress, every time. Significant advancements.
Yeah.
You've been tinkering with Remotion at all lately, or nah?
No, I haven't really gotten there yet, but want to soon.
Same. Once we get good data, and everything's kind of good on the data side and the website.
Yeah. All right, I'm gonna sign off.